Hi, this is Jaquez from Dear Coders, and I will explain in this tutorial how to consume data from a WCF service through a Windows Phone 7 application. Basic concepts of WCF service, such as creating service contracts and data contracts, adding a service reference in a Silverlight application, are required. This will be a series of couple of videos in which we will explain this concept, and we will go through a simple tutorial, we will go through a simple project, and we will try to explain it as best as possible. When it comes to store and consume data through a Windows Phone application, the first thing that comes to mind is isolated storage. But does the data really need to be inside a phone in order for us as users to access it? Well, smartphones nowadays have the capability of tapping into a remote network resource to retrieve and store data, either through a Wi-Fi connection or the plan that the phone carrier provides it. In the case of the Windows Phone 7, since it runs Silverlight, we can tap into a WCF service hosted in a remote location, from where you can access an unlimited amount of data, and through the same service you can save data to a remote database, for example, and retrieve it later, all without compromising the storage capabilities of your device. Consuming WCF data in a Windows Phone 7 device is the same as in regular Silverlight application, in which you add a service reference to the Silverlight project, invoke methods from the proxy generated, and handle the appropriate events in order to receive the data in an asynchronous fashion. In this video, I will create a simple project to demonstrate how this works. As always, we're going to start backwards, from the back end to the front end. In this case, I'll create a simple project that will simulate like a banking application through which you can deposit or withdraw funds to an account, and you will get the updated balance back. Okay, so for this, for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to create a simple project. So I'm going to go to Visual Studio. I'll hit File, New, Project. For this, it is assumed that you have the Windows Phone Developer Tools installed on your machine and integrated with Visual Studio 2010. So for that, you can select the template and say Silverlight for Windows Phone, and you click on the Windows Phone application. Since this is going to be like a mobile banking app, that's exactly how I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it Mobile Banking App. I'm just going to click OK because it's going to go to the default location. And there I am. I just created the basic shell or default project that it creates. As soon as you create a Windows Phone 7 project, it just gives you the default files and all that. But for now, we're not going to focus on the UI aspect of this project. We're going to go right into the services. So how do you accomplish this? Well, after, within the same solution, you create an additional project which will hold the WCF portion of this project. Right click on the solution, select Add, New Project, and then you select WCF Service Application. And since we're going to create the WCF Service part, we're going to call this Mobile Banking Service. We're going to call this Mobile Banking Service. We're going to click OK. You get, as a default, you get like a service file and its corresponding interface. So I'm not going to use these. I'm going to create my own. So I'm just going to delete these right away. Within my mobile banking service, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create those two, that one. So I'm going to say Add New Item. I'm going to go down and say WCF Service. In this case, it will create a class for creating a WCF service, which we will create our own. In our case, we're going to call it Banking Transaction. So I'm going to say Banking Transaction. This WCF service file is the one that is actually going to expose the operations that will be available on this service. That's why I called it that, so that within my project I will have a service that will represent those operations. So you have to make it very you would like to make it explicitly, so that you can identify the service and differentiate it from other services that you may have. Okay, once I have the operation, well, it just creates some boilerplate code for you, but what I can start doing, because I'm gonna collapse this for a second, and I'm gonna go back to the to this WCF service project. How do you, in order to make this a little bit more organized, what I like to do is create folders for each of the entities or pieces that will compose this whole project. So in this case, I'm going to create the entities that will interact in the service, where we're gonna have service contracts and operation contracts. So I'm gonna create the same folders. So I'll say data contracts, and I'm going to create a folder for our service contracts. We already have the service contract right here, which is an interface called iBanking transaction, which is defined as a service contract because of the attribute, and every operation that we'll have will be defined as an operation contract. So what are those operations? Well, we're going to have two basic operations: get account info and deposit funds. Get account info will return to the user the bank account information, and the deposit funds will allow the user to deposit that information. For now, we need to create the data contract first because the operations depend on these. So within the data contract folder, I'm going to create a new class. This class, I'm going to call it bank account, as it will hold my data. This is what my data is all about, and this is the data that will travel over the wire, and it is mandatory that is serialized so that it can travel over the wire, so that it can be serialized as SOAP. Because this is the way WCF works, communicating messages, exchanging messages back and forth. So the way to create this the way to make this class serializable is by defining it as a data contract and defining the properties within this class as data members. So I'm just going to paste this code snippet real quick. I'm going to import the required class, which is Silverlight.runtime serialization, which is the one that contains the data contract and data member attributes. So your class, the class that will be a data contract, you decorate it with a data contract attribute. Its members or its properties will be defined as data members, because you're going to serialize the class, but each member within needs to be serialized as well. That's why you create it like this. So we have our bank account. We will have an account number, a customer name, and a balance, and that's what's going to travel over the wire. We'll pick it up on the other end. We will consume this data. We might be able to pass it back or whatever, but for now, this is all that we need for the data contract. So once the data contract has been created, I'm going to come to my service contract, and I'm going to define the required operations. So I'm going to paste a little bit of code right here, and then I'm going to explain it. Okay, so see, it required the bank account. You bring in the required using and the required libraries and folders and packages. In this case, I needed the data contracts in order to bring the bank account. So the two operations exposed by this service are get account info, which will require a username and a password to be passed to it. And there's another operation called deposit funds, which returns a double and requires as a parameter an account number and a double amount. This will simulate the fact that you will be able to pass an amount to your balance, add it to your balance, and receive the balance and the updated balance back to you, as in simulating a deposit. So once we have all our pieces in place for the service, let's rebuild the project just in case. And now what I can try, okay, the only thing that I needed to do here is just changing the namespace over here. So the banking transaction interface, I'm going to drag it into my service contracts because I want to have things a little bit more organized. And this namespace, I'm going to change it back. The banking transaction service, I'm going to say mobile banking service dot service contracts, so that I can actually have access to it. This is the actual implementation. We're going to come back to this now. This is the actual implementation of the service. Again, since this iBanking transaction is within service contracts, I need to actually, since I already changed the namespace that it belongs to. So this implementation actually, the implementation of this interface, I need to bring the namespace into this. It just keeps asking that because it doesn't find it. But the only thing that I need to do is say using, we're just gonna bring the mobile banking service dot service contracts, because I need that information that is actually here, the service contract. Okay, it just keeps asking for that. But what I can do is say banking transaction service. Well, actually, that's what it was. The problem is that the interface was renamed as a banking transaction service. So back over here to the banking transaction, which implements the interface iBanking transaction service, I need to remove this because this was part of the boilerplate code that got generated before. And the only thing that I need to do is say implement interface, implement interface. That way I can bring my operations. I just want to bring that extra using that was required. And let's say what I can do is like kind of make kind of like the way this is going to be recreated, like the in the sense of what is going to be the operation that will be performed when I receive my information. Let's say in this case what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a private instance field of type double called balance. And I'm just gonna provide like a fixed value to it. I could, so I'm gonna say like 250, whatever. And then here in the get account info, all I'm going to do, since I'm not gonna do any processing, no validation, I'm not gonna do any authentication or authorization of the user, I'm just gonna receive the information just to, for the sake of this example. Like you can send information and you can do anything with it in here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to I'm going to return a new bank account object. And I'm just going to pass the information. Let's say bank account number. I'm just going to create it. I'm going to create a GUID. No GUID dot to string. Just something, something that I can just populate this with. Customer name. I'm just going to put my name here. And as a balance, I'm just going to use our current balance that we have in here in this application. So that's it. I'm just going to say new return this, and I'm just gonna, whenever I pass the username and password, I'm gonna receive this bank account, this hard-coded bank account. Deposit funds. How are we gonna implement this? You can implement it any way you want. You can just maybe receive the account number, do whatever you want with it, but in this case, for simplicity, I'm just gonna receive the amount. I'm going to add that to the balance and return the updated balance to the user. So what I'm gonna say is balance, and I'm gonna pass the amount. By doing this, I'm actually adding the amount to the current balance amount, adding all that up, and now I'm going to say return balance. That way I return the updated balance back to the user. So let's rebuild this. Everything succeeded. We didn't get any errors. Now, what do you do? What do you want to do now? What should you do now? Now that the service has been in place, you have created your data contracts, your service contracts, the operations. Now it's time to see whether the service is working or not. How do you do that? You can right click on this SVC file and say view in browser. That will actually generate the WSDL. It will create the service for you, and expose it so that all applications that want to subscribe to this can just discover it and they can see it. For example, see the SVC util generates the WSDL for you and it exposes it. It's just a simple WSDL, but at least we see that we're running a local host in the local server, in the local web server, so then you can see that the service is up and running and you can actually access it from your the Silverlight application or the Windows Phone 7 application. So in the next video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to consume this already created service, and I'll try to be able to connect to it and make calls into it.